Miami, Florida. It's coming up next on the Superchargers.
The Superchargers, national championship and unique motorsports events, brought to you by English Leather. Wear English Leather or wear nothing at all. By your neighborhood True Value hardware stores. We've got what it takes. And by Gold Eagle, makers of fine automotive products.
Superchargers. Today, it's fast action from the streets of Miami, Florida. It's the Grand Prix of Miami, featuring GTP racing cars, fast and exotic. Hi, everyone. I'm Jan Gabriel, along with Bruce Planters, and today, you're going to meet some international superstars.
And see some very fast racing cars, Jan. Exotic was the word you used, and it's probably the correct one. These are one-off race cars. They can carry 2 passengers. The other passenger's got to be small. IMSA runs a lot of different forms of racing. This is the quickest class and definitely the most exotic.
Right now, let's take a look at the race course itself. Now, it's extremely interesting, but a little on the tight side. The start-finish line is located here on Biscayne Boulevard. The cars travel south through turns 1 and 2, then head back north on the longest part of the course, which is where the cars will reach speeds up to 160 miles an hour. Then they slow for a series of turns and a short straightaway, which leads them to the specially created part of the course. Then on to a straightaway running parallel to the Miami Marina. Another left-hand turn heads them down to the Marina hairpin, a tight hairpin. Then through Bayfront Park and back onto Biscayne Boulevard for the start and finish line.
Well, Jan, it was wet during the qualifying session, and it changed the way it all lined up. But right at the end of the qualifying, it got dry, and some of the fastest times were turned right then.
On the front row, it's fast qualifiers Tony Garcia and Emerson Fittipaldi. Garcia will be starting. Outside is the car number 7, Claus Ludwig and Bobby Rahal. Ludwig is taking the first turn at the wheel.
Row number 2 finds Brian Redman and Doc Bundy sharing the ride in a 04 Jaguar. Redman coming out of retirement to start here today. Alongside of them, car number 30, Jean-Pierre Moretti and Oscar Larari in the Momo Ford.
In row number 3, it's car number 00, the winning team from the 24 Hours of Daytona this year, Cyril Vandermeer and Tony Martin. Vandermeer is the starting driver. Inside that row, it's car number 39, John Gunn and Justin Ravine.
Row number 4 finds Bob Tullius paired with racing rider Pat Bedard. They'll be starting in the number 44 Jaguar. And Don and Bill Whittington in number 88 on the inside.
Qualifying for the 5th row is a Porsche Turbo piloted by the team of Bob Wallach and one of the greatest names in American racing, A.J. Foyt. Foyt will start behind the wheel. Chuck Kendall and Jim Cook have put their Chevy Lola alongside of them to complete row number 5.
That's the fastest 10 out of a field of 30, and we're ready to go racing.
Let's go back now. 2.5 hours ago, the start of the Miami Grand Prix. The green flag is out.
The green flag came out a little bit late. Off of the 2nd row, the Jaguar with Brian Redman at the wheel got the start down beautifully. Took it all the way to the front from the 2nd row, and they go coagulating into the corner.
5 abreast they were, narrowing it down to a single file configuration as they head north now on Biscayne Boulevard. Speeds up to 160 miles per hour.
This is the fastest portion of the racetrack right here, and now you've got to get on the brakes real hard for a right-hander, and we'll be going out onto the manufactured portion of the racetrack in just a moment. The lead still Brian Redman in the Jaguar, Tony Garcia in 2nd place.
These sleek race cars then began threading the needle through turns number 6 and 7 alongside the Port of Miami. It was Redman, Garcia, and Ludwig.
The top 3 cars running awful hard the field, trying to make their way through the corners earlier. And if we go now to a replay of what happened off of Biscayne Boulevard, there it was Jim Downing spinning it around, but luckily he never tagged the wall, Jan.
All right, once again now, the leaders, they continue to hammer down the straightaways through the turns.
Emilio De Villota, mechanical problems. I think it's knocked him clear out of the race in the very early going. It's a short Miami Grand Prix for him.
Then it was nose to tail as everyone chased the leader. Claus Ludwig went hard into one of the turns, got on the brakes, got underneath and around Tony Garcia to take over the number 2 spot. We asked Sterling Moss, how many pit stops today?
It depends actually on the setup. Some of them can get through with one stop that is just for fuel, and certainly you've got a mandatory stop because each driver has to complete a certain amount of time. In other words, the minimum a driver can do is 1 hour. So many of them are going halfway and stopping once. More, I think, are probably going to go and have 2 stops for mainly for fuel. Some may have to change tires depending on the temperature, which of course now they know. But another thing you have to remember is they haven't done much testing here in the dry because the practice has been wet, or quite a lot of wet, and therefore they don't know exactly what the tire wear is going to be or their fuel consumption. I think it's up to the individual team managers. It depends on when a yellow flag is thrown, which means everybody slows up and therefore saves fuel and saves tires. It depends on the strength of the drivers because in this temperature, on a circuit as difficult as this is, or twisty and hard work as this is, probably many drivers wouldn't want to do much over an hour. Some will do an hour and a half. I think this is the good thing about racing is an awful lot of variables, and we'll know in a few hours' time when the race takes place.
The great Sterling Moss, he says there's a lot of variables here, Bruce. Heat's got to be one of them.
Oh, definitely. Inside the cars, it's hot, and look out, we've got a problem right there. That was Juan Fangio, the nephew of the great one, the multi-time world champion. But this kid's got a lot more to learn about street racing, Jen. There's our leader once again, as Brian Redmond now starting to feel some pressure. Klaus Ludwig on the Mustang has latched on to his rear end. In fact, it looks like he's trying him right there.
And you can see Tony Garcia running third, starting to drop off the pace just a little bit.
Inside those cars, it could be as hot as 120 degrees right now, and the air is used underneath the cars to keep them stuck to the ground with the ground effects. There's no air flowing through like you and I'd have to do with our street car.
Of course, and unlike Indianapolis cars and other cars, these cars are completely enclosed.
Enclosed and using that air, as we said, for ground effects. The car may weigh only about 1,700 or 1,800 pounds, but when you put it into the corner on a high-speed corner, it's effectively working like a 3,000-pound car and sticks hard.
All right, Bob Julius now running in the number 44 car. That's the Team Jaguar car. He's in the 14.
This car, an interesting part about it, the engines are made in Great Britain. The chassis are made here in America. The reverse of what normally happens with the marches as we look from the Goodyear blimp at the overview of this beautiful track here in Miami.
All right, that was the first hour of the Grand Prix of Miami. Now let's take a look at the second hour. Here they are, thundering their way through traffic. Traffic a problem at this point.
Definitely a problem, and the Mustang trying to pick a quick way through. Your objective right now, if you're still in the running, is to try to keep the car in one piece. If you bounce it off of a wall or hurt it some other way, you're in deep trouble. By the way, the yellow flame coming out of those exhaust pipes is an overrich condition in the turbocharger and nothing to worry about at this moment.
In the second hour, Brian Redmond continues to dominate, and what a battle for third.
Oh, third place is a war right now. Number 44, Bob Tullius, going in underneath Bill Whittington. They nearly touched. No damage to either car, though, but third place haven't added as they go out onto that manufactured portion. The Jags are now first and third, Jen.
And, of course, those Jaguars developing tremendous horsepower, over 600 horsepower. Their V12s are the only V12s in the field.
They make a lot of horsepower, and they get off the corner in a hurry. They definitely run strong.
Here's a favorite, A.J. Foyt, winner of the Indianapolis 500 4 times.
He's in a Porsche 935, and the car is almost an antique compared to the late model manufacturing of some of these other cars.
Running behind A.J. Foyt was the car number 00. Kind of a sentimental favorite here. It was being driven by Tony Martin and Cyril Vandermeer. Now, these two combined to win the 1984 Daytona 24-hour race.
This particular chassis and engine combination, one of 19 different chassis and engines, it's a Porsche in a March with South Africans at the wheel. So you've got an English chassis, a German engine, and South Africans driving it.
And look at here, the leaders now. They were nose to tail. Redmond trying to hold off Ludwig. Ludwig, however, came out of turn number 14, took advantage of the fact that Redmond was blocked behind the Red Lobster car and got into the lead. Klaus Ludwig won Le Mans in 1979 and again in 84. Gary Lee talked to him earlier.
Klaus, you're considered a technician. You do the testing, you set the car up. What does the car communicate to you as the driver?
You know, it doesn't need a driver for a technician. You need him, but the engineers and the crew has to make the technique. But the driver has to say, those people, what the car is feeling like, you know, and then they can react. I think I can help them pretty good because I think I have a good feeling for a car and say, hey, it's doing this or that, it's understeering, oversteering, it's too hard or too soft, we need more wing, more downforce in the front, more in the rear, and that's the story.
This car was real hot out of the box back in 1983 in its debut race at Road America. It won the event. Hasn't done too well since.
Right behind Klaus Ludwig now is Brian Redmond in the 04 car. And the Britisher, who's transplanted here to Florida, become a car dealer. Gary Lee talked with him.
Brian Redmond, can you contrast the road racing in this country in the city streets to road racing on city streets in Europe?
Well, I guess that road racing in the city is about the same wherever you are. You know, whether you're in Miami or whether you're in Monaco, you're in the city streets. The only thing I would say is that today there is an increasing amount of street racing in America and a decreasing amount in Europe. I don't think the European cities would like to see racing through the streets anymore, but the American cities see it as a great promotional venture. It brings people to the city.
Brian Redmond, quite a champion. He's won 16 World Endurance Championship events. Well, it was at this stage of the race now that the pit action really began to pick up. Here's Bob Aiken, car number 5. He's in with a little fender bender.
Boy, the concrete walls will hurt the cars when you put them in there the wrong way. Along with the number 5 car in the pit lane, there's several others. Here's Hurley Haywood hopping his way over to get in for Claude Bellolina. And Haywood, sporting an injury from a race about 3 months ago. He's physically okay to drive, they say, but the clutch foot will be tough.
Also coming in was the Austin Martin of Jack Miller and Carlos Romero. As Romero's got in the car, Miller got out, and glad to do so, with over 125 degrees of heat in the cockpit of that automobile.
Well, on top of everything else, Jan, this particular car has not been handling well all day. It's overweight and tough to drive. The Leon brothers came in their march, switching the two brothers back and forth. So far, things are working well for them.
Now, here you see the Whittington brothers. This is Don Whittington. Both of these fellows have driven at Le Mans, also at Indy, so they've got quite a background. They are currently up in the point standings with IMSA. They rolled in with radiator problems.
Change of drivers right now, as Tony Garcia has done what he's supposed to do. Brought home one whole car for Emerson Fittipaldi to drive.
Back on the racetrack, the leader was Klaus Ludwig. Brian Redmond trying to get around him. Then disaster for the Ford Mustang. Ludwig slowed way down. Redmond came to the inside and took over the lead.
It looked as though Ludwig must have bounced it off of a wall out there somewhere, and the Jaguar back out in front, and they're pleased about it, but now there's disappointment reigning in the Ford pit area.
So Brian Redmond now, with the pressure off, he'll be looking forward to a pit stop and a driver change with Doc Bundy.
Interesting to note that Bobby Rahal never had a chance to turn a wheel. The co-driver with Klaus Ludwig. He's qualified 2 years here and never gotten a chance to turn a wheel in that particular Mustang. As they move it back behind the wall, Gary Lee had a chance to talk with Klaus Ludwig about the car.
Klaus, we can read the bitter disappointment on your face. You had the Mustang out in front. What happened?
I did a big mistake. I kissed one of these barriers. They're pretty concrete. So the front just touched it, but the front axle broke then. Out.
Certainly a very dejected but honest Klaus Ludwig. We'll be back with more update and the finish of the Miami Grand Prix here on the Superchargers. It's the Miami Grand Prix, and we've just had a little incident down in turn number 12. I'm Jan Gabriel, along with Bruce Flanders. Bruce, what's going on down there?
Carlos Ramirez in the Aston Martin Nimrod had what we call a shunt. He put that sucker into the wall hard, Jan. Look at it. The front end is history.
Now, this is a team that has had some economical problems to start with. They've been a little short on cash. They got this car together, and here they are in trouble again. This is going to bring out the yellow flag, which means the course is going to be brought down to a slow snail's pace.
That's right. Pace cars come out on the track, and we've tightened them up. Here's the leaderboard.
Still in number 1 position, it's Redmond. Tullius is second. Kalajian is third. Fourth is Fittipaldi. Lobenberg is fifth. Top 5 in that order. Let's take a look once again and see how they got there. Here is your leader, Brian Redmond.
Well, it's been a faultless run so far by the Jaguar, and they have just been doing a beautiful job since the Mustang fell out of it.
So the leaders continued along smoothly until Bob Tullius in the car number 44 lost it down in a tight turn, tried to get it corrected. Slow, agonizing process.
Well, Jan, it just shows you how narrow this racetrack can be in places. He's got to double cut a Jaguar to get it around like it was a big truck.
While Julius was trying to get the second-place Jaguar car turned around, a real war developed for the number 3 position. Here's Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi in the spirit of Miami, getting down on the inside of John Kalajian out of Folly Beach, South Carolina, and Fittipaldi takes over the number 3 spot.
When Fittipaldi took over the car, Tony Garcia had brought it back home in one piece, but had brought it back about a lap down to everybody. Right now, Fittipaldi's the fastest one on the course. That's a good look right now at the Bob Lobenberg John Morton car, which is sitting 5th overall and just keeps hammering away those laps. Into the pits now.
It was A.J. Foyt in the pits for a driver change. We asked him how involved he was with IMSA.
Well, we're pretty much involved. You know, this course here is pretty tricky. I've never been here before, and we hadn't had too many laps. But I'm decided I better start, since we're getting so many road races in the car, I better start doing some road racing again.
Bob Wallach went in the car for A.J. Foyt. They were running 7th. In the 8th position was this 00 car. This is Cyril Vandermeer.
It's a Porsche with a turbocharger in a March, and it's got problems. The left front wheel locking up and braking, and a lot of yellow flame coming out, apparently due to leakage in their intake manifold system.
Here's an exciting-looking car. This is Pete Halsmer driving the car number 68.
It's a Lola with a Mazda rotary motor, and it's a very lightweight race car.
Here's where the complexion of the race changed somewhat as Brian Redmond brought the lead Jaguar in for a driver change. He turned it over to the capable hands of Doc Bundy.
Not exactly Indianapolis-style pit stops, and Bob Tullius takes over the companion car, but he too has one stop remaining.
Doc Bundy wheels the Jaguar down pit row to join the rank and file on the racetrack. Here now, Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi, in the spirit of Miami, a Chevy March, the fastest car on the racetrack, no doubt about it.
The two-time world champion has got the walls figured out in Miami. Here is the car who was in the lead for just a little while. Tullius getting out of the car, Patrick Bedard getting in, and Gary Lee had a chance to talk to Bob.
I know it's one real tiring, fatiguing race out there.
It's very difficult. The course is very short, very bumpy, sort of like a go-kart course, and a lot of people can relate to that. These are very big, powerful cars. They're very difficult to handle in a situation like that. But it seemed to be going well, and we're running pretty well. We'll finish pretty good, I think.
Well, Bob Tullius certainly did an excellent job of keeping the car up front for Pat Bedard.
Yeah, Bedard takes over now. He's going to be a little bit cold behind the wheel on it. As we watch, both of the Jaguars and the whole Jaguar team have got to be pleased. But here's the guy that is their threat, number 84, Emerson Fittipaldi.
All right, you're watching an update of the Miami Grand Prix. Here's an interesting situation.
Oh, yeah, one Jaguar leaving the pit area, the other one trying to put a lap on him. Look out, Doc Bundy does a fine job in the 04 car of missing Patrick Bedard. That moves Bedard on around the racetrack. He didn't hurt it. And as we turn around the other car in the runoff area, the leader right here in front of you getting back onto the course and losing valuable seconds.
Doc Bundy back underway, and benefiting from all this is Emerson Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi was within 20 seconds of the leaders. Now let's take a look at the leaderboard. Bundy, Bedard, Fittipaldi, Kalajian, and Lobenberg. And that's the way they were running when once again we were ready for the green here at the Miami Grand Prix.
Pace car off, green flag waving, and the Jaguar tries to pull away. There are several lapped cars now in between the traffic. 3 cars on the lead lap. 2 of them are Jaguars and 1 belongs to Fittipaldi.
We're bringing you the action, and we'll bring it to you right up to the conclusion, just a few minutes away. Again, it's Doc Bundy in the 04. He is your leader. And look at Emerson Fittipaldi.
Fittipaldi breathing down the back right now of number 44, Patrick Bedard. Both of them in traffic. Here's a move on the inside, and Fittipaldi takes over second place.
Pat Bedard's got to be a little frustrated now. Here he is again. He's going to try it on the outside through the S's. Dodges back to the inside. Can't pull it off. Fittipaldi pulls away from him.
And Fittipaldi definitely running true to the stopwatches. He's the quickest car on the racetrack. He's got one more guy he needs a shot at, and he'll take over the lead, the other Jag.
We asked Fittipaldi, the 2-time world champion, if he liked GTP racing.
No, I think it's for sure I enjoy driving the sports car, the prototype here in Miami on the straight circuits. I'm here for this race, but for sure it's a good test to practice for me to go back into Formula One in Grand Prix race.
Emerson Fittipaldi retired from Formula One driving back in 1980. Looks like he wants back bad.
Oh, yeah. He'll drive anything, though. If you put underneath him an Indy car, for instance, he'd probably give it a heck of a go. He's closing, but it looks like our leader right here, Doc Bundy, who took over for Brian Redmond, has got it in his back pocket if he can keep it together. The Jaguar people think that Fittipaldi has to make one more fuel stop. Jan, I don't know whether he does or not.
Well, it doesn't make much difference now. In turn 14, you see it. Emerson Fittipaldi down by the Miami Marina. The car is being pushed off the racetrack. Evidently a drive line, something under the car. Doesn't appear to be any damage.
Well, you talk about ruining a comeback. He was on a beautiful comeback. That puts the number 44 car back into the second place spot, Jan, and now it looks like it's going to be a Jaguar sweep.
Indeed, with Doc Bundy up on the point and Patrick Bedard running second.
Number 9 having some problems right there. Wayne Baker and Tom Blackaller. Looks like an oil fire or something underneath. We're looking from the top now down at the Conti car. That one driven by Lobenberg and Morton. They've been plugging along all day, and they're sitting at about 4th place now.
All right, moving now to the final lap of the Miami Grand Prix, and here is your leader, Doc Bundy, out of Cross Junction, Virginia.
A narrow part of the racetrack. This has got to be a happy driver inside of that car. First ride ever with the Jaguar team, bringing it home a winner. You'd be pleased, wouldn't you?
All right, the checkered flag flies as Brian Redmond and Doc Bundy bring home the Team Jaguar and win the Miami Grand Prix.
And what a successful race it's been. Thousands of people in this grandstand, and they do love their racing here.
And we'll be back with the winners of the Miami Grand Prix in just a moment.
From the inside, no one covers it like Auto Week.
We're back on the Superchargers, and here with the winners of the Miami Grand Prix is Gary Lee.
Brian Redmond, you set the tone early. You won the lead, you got the lead. The only challenge really came from the Ford Mustang.
That's right. I expected more challenge from the Mustang and from the March car, but it never really materialized. Ludwig closed up after about 35 minutes and passed, but he drove into the wall.
And, of course, at that point, you had everything to your liking.
Pretty well, but you can never be sure. You've always got to keep going at a good pace, you know, whilst looking after the car and trying to avoid everybody else that's out there.
And, Doc, he put the pressure on you because he had a well out in front when you took over.
Well, I guess it is a little nerve-wracking waiting. But it also made it very easy for me because he gave it to me with a big lead. So all I had to do was drive around.
We congratulate both of you. Jan, back to you in race control.
Now, there's a couple of real happy fellas here in Miami.
Well, $50,000 to share between them probably make you happy, too.
Of course, they came really prepared to go racing here.
I was impressed with the Jaguar team all weekend long.
With one exception, that little shunt.
Could have been trouble, but they lived through it all.
Now, if you want to go racing in one of these cars, it's going to cost you $250,000 per copy. Around.
Take two, they're cheap.
Yeah, why not? I'm Jan Gabriel, thanking Gary Lee and Bruce Flanders for being here with us on the Superchargers, and hope that you'll join us again next time for more Fast Action Motorsports.
The Superchargers, brought to you by English Leather and True Value Hardware Stores. Promotional